You're trapped right now. Not by your job. Not by your past. Not by the people who've hurt you. You're trapped by something invisible. Something so close to your eyes you stopped seeing it years ago. It's a story. A single story you tell yourself every day. And that story is killing your life. I can't do that. I'm not the type. That's not for people like me. The job I hate is the one I deserve. The relationship that diminishes me is the one I'm stuck with. The fear I feel is the truth about who I am. And you believe it. Not because it's true, but because you've said it so many times that it became invisible. Like air. Like the puppet strings so close to your face that you forget they're there. But here's what changes everything. The Stoics discovered something we've almost forgotten. Between the event and your suffering stands a single point of absolute power. Not your circumstances. Not your genetics. Not what others have done to you. But the judgment you make about it. The story you tell yourself about what it means. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote this: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't speaking to people with easy lives. He ruled an empire. He felt crushed by duty, by expectation, by the weight of millions depending on him. But he found something that changed everything. He found that the trap was not the circumstance. The trap was the story he told about the circumstance. And I'm about to show you exactly how that works. Because once you see this, you can never unsee it. You're stuck in a job. But what's the real cage? Is it the desk? The schedule? The boss? No. The cage is the thought, I need this job or I will fail. I can't leave because I'm not talented enough. I'm too old. Too inexperienced. Too ordinary. My life is determined by this paycheck. I'll never escape. That's the puppet master. Not the job. The story about the job. And here's where it gets worse, you don't even realize you're telling the story. It's become so automatic that you think it's the truth. You think it's reality. Or you're in a relationship that hurts you. And a voice whispers, I can't leave. I'm too afraid. Too dependent. I've invested too much. I don't deserve better. I'm not the kind of person who gets to be happy. The puppet master's voice. And you believe it like gospel. But what I'm about to tell you will shift something fundamental. Something you can't take back once you see it. When you stop believing the story, it loses its grip. Not immediately. Not easily. But inevitably. This is not positive thinking. This is not pretending your problems don't exist. This is not faith or hope or willpower. This is clarity. You begin to separate the fact from the story about the fact. Fact, I am in a job I don't enjoy. Story, I am trapped here forever because I'm not capable of anything else. Fact, I am afraid. Story, my fear defines what's possible for me. Fact, I have failed before. Story, I am a failure. Do you see the difference? The first is simply what is. The second is the puppet master's voice. And it only has power if you don't recognize it as a voice. As a story. As a choice you're making, moment after moment, to believe it. Water doesn't argue with the stone. It doesn't tell itself a story about why it can't flow around it. It simply moves. It finds the way. Not because water is brave, but because water doesn't confuse itself with the obstacle. You are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not the story your mind tells about what you deserve or what's possible. You are the one watching the story. You are the awareness behind it. And the moment you truly see that, the moment you recognize yourself as the observer, not the puppet, the strings become visible. And visible strings are no longer strings. They're just threads. And threads can be cut. But here's what nobody tells you about freedom, and this is crucial. Seeing your strings is not the same as being free from them. Not yet. Because you've been a puppet for years. Your muscles know the shape of your cage. Your brain has worn deep grooves along the path of your story. Changing that requires something the Stoics called praxis, practice. Small, repeated acts of reclamation. It looks like this: you feel the familiar thought, I can't do this. And instead of believing it automatically, you pause. You ask, is this true? Or is this the story I always tell myself? That's it. That single question is the beginning of everything. You notice the feeling of limitation. And you choose, consciously, to not act from that feeling. Not yet. You sit with it. You watch it. Like clouds moving across the sky. You don't fight the cloud. You don't believe the cloud is the sky. You simply notice it's there. And you wait. Then, from that space of noticing, you take one small action. Not a grand gesture. Not a heroic leap. One small action that contradicts the story. You send one email. You have one conversation. You sit with the discomfort for 5 minutes longer than the story says you should. You reach out. You ask for help. You say no when you normally say yes. And something shifts. Not because the external world has changed, but because you have. You've begun the process of separating from the puppet master's voice. And each time you do this, the strings become a little more visible. A little less real. A little less you. But wait, before you think this gets easier, I need to tell you something that will either discourage you or liberate you. Probably both. You will be captured again. The puppet master will whisper again. You will believe again. And that's not failure. That's not a sign you're doing this wrong. That's simply the nature of being human. The question is not, will I ever feel trapped again? The question is, how quickly will I recognize the trap for what it is? That's the whole game. That's what separates people who remain puppets from people who reclaim their lives. Not the absence of the trap, but recognition of the trap. Marcus Aurelius had the power to command armies. Literally control the fate of millions. But the thing he worked on every single day was his relationship to his own thoughts. He practiced this. Over and over. In the meditations, you hear him doing it. Catching himself in a story. Asking if it's true. Choosing a different perspective. The most powerful man in the world. And his real work was internal. His real freedom had nothing to do with his circumstances. It had everything to do with his relationship to his circumstances. And that's available to you right now. Not someday. Not when your life is different. Not when you're finally successful or finally loved or finally confident. Right now. In this moment. In whatever cage you think you're in. The strings are visible if you look. They are made of words. Of stories. Of judgments you've accepted as facts. And words can be examined. Stories can be rewritten. Judgments can be questioned. You are not trapped by circumstance. You never were. You are trapped by the illusion. And illusions dissolve the moment you see them clearly. So ask yourself this question tonight. Ask it tomorrow morning. Ask it whenever you feel that familiar weight. What story am I telling about my situation that I'm willing to believe is the whole truth? That question, asked sincerely, is the beginning of everything. Because once you begin asking it, you can never fully believe the puppet master's voice again. Not completely. Not really. You've caught a glimpse of something. You've seen that you are not the puppet. You are the one who sees the puppet. And that seeing is freedom. Not freedom from difficulty. Not freedom from fear. Not freedom from pain. But freedom from the belief that the difficulty and the fear and the pain are who you are. And that makes all the difference. That changes everything. The only question now is, will you see it? Fade to black.